told us yesterday that the pause may be extended daily as long as Hamas agrees to free 10 Israeli hostages per day. Where do we stand on that front heading into tomorrow?
Well, we are on the brink of receiving today's hostages. 2 have already entered Israel, and we are expecting that another 6 women and children will be entering Israel in the next few hours, which would fulfill the obligations of today's agreement. In return, we are releasing people from Israeli prisons. This is an unfortunate thing that we have to do because we've seen an uptick in violence in Judea and Samaria where these people have been released, because Hamas flags are what are receiving them, and it's giving fire, fanning the flames of fire of Hamas in the West Bank. However, this is a price that we're paying in order to bring our hostages home. I will point out that Hamas did today take credit for a vicious terror attack in Jerusalem, in the holy city of Jerusalem, a city important to Jews, Christians, and Muslims all throughout the world. 3 innocent people were gunned down and 6 people injured. And these are just more Hamas tactics similar to those used on those families along the Gaza envelope, near the Gaza Strip, the Israeli families, and now used in Jerusalem. So Hamas, wherever they go, there's an evilness. However, strictly according to the terms of this agreement, if we receive the 10 hostages total per day, we do have the opportunity to move forward with this up till 10 days.
There a deadline every day for when you have to hear that those 10 will be released every day?
Yes, there is. There's a deadline. It takes place in the early hours of the morning, Israel time. And we were really up to the edge of that deadline this morning until that deal actually came together and was made. And this is not surprising. I mean, Hamas will exploit any opportunity they have to inflict emotional pain on the families of the hostages. Every single day, these delays are late. The families come out late. There are videos that are circulated. There have been stories that hostages have been killed, and then they've arrived living, like Hana Katsir in Israel. And also we've seen people go to Gaza alive, and afterward, we've seen Hamas kill them. So this same ability to manipulate the press and manipulate the Israeli people is Hamas's game. It happens on a daily basis. And therefore, we've come almost to expect it. I will say, if this agreement does not move forward, we are fully prepared to move forward with our operational military goals in the field. The only reason we've stopped them is because of this opportunity to get our hostages home in this framework agreement.
Now, we do want to play some footage. We just got this into our newsroom moments ago. We were watching as we saw what appears to be the transport vehicles for those hostages. Again, this footage just coming into our newsroom within the past few minutes. So what we expect, I believe, is possibly, and it looks like this might be that border crossing in between southern Gaza and northern Egypt. So time will tell as to whether or not these vehicles were entering into Gaza or if they were exiting Gaza. But it's your understanding that those hostages are in the process of transport right now. Is that right, Major?
That is correct. The reports do say that they are on the way from Gaza via the Rafiah crossing into Egypt. And from Egypt, they will take a short course until they come finally, after 55 painful days, back home into Israel to be welcomed by their families. Again, this is a ray of light in a dark cloud that has been covering the skies of Israel. But for these families, the story is just beginning. Many of them do not even know the extent of the October 7th massacre that Hamas carried out. They don't know, in some cases, that their relatives are still abducted in Gaza and unfortunately have been killed. And so this is a long, painful process of healing these people are going to need to go through because of the war Hamas inflicted on Israel.
We saw the images of the 21-year-old French-Israeli woman who was released today. She had an emotional reunion with her family that was caught on video. What have we learned now that hostages have been released over the past 6-7 days? What have we learned from the hostages that have been released, perhaps about the conditions that they were living in while they were in captivity?
Well, the stories that we're getting are varied. It's obviously a harrowing ordeal to be woken up from your bed, yanked out of your bed in your pajamas, dragged across the ground, thrown on motorbikes, hit by bats while you're being driven. An 86-year-old woman recounts that she was being driven on the back of a motorcycle, lying on her side, and the terrorist was beating her as he was driving her into the Gaza Strip. The hostages are kept deep underneath the ground. They're having trouble seeing because they have not been exposed to sunlight for so long. Malnutrition is common amongst all the hostages. And we hear different stories. We also hear stories that Sinwar himself came to visit some of the hostages. And when they challenged him, he remained quiet, almost as if he was afraid with the challenges of, do you have any self-respect whatsoever? And so the ordeal depends on person by person. Again, families have been split up. We've seen some hostages that have come home and their family members are still left in Gaza. And so the ordeal is harrowing. It is going to be a cut that is going to take many years to heal, not only on their bodies, on their physical health, but on the mental trauma that these people have had to go through, because Hamas really spares no opportunity to inflict pain.
U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken met with the Palestinian Authority president today and spoke about the importance of accelerating humanitarian aid in Gaza. How do these entities balance sending aid into Gaza without it turning into aid for Hamas?
Well, this is definitely one of the biggest challenges. We want the aid to reach the people of Gaza and not reach Hamas. Hamas themselves have been hoarding the aid of the Gazan people for years. In fact, Hamas has enough fuel to keep themselves supplied and send rockets against Israel for as long as they want. And so Hamas takes this. There's a history of them taking supplies for the Gazan people and using it for themselves. The process is that the aid trucks come via Egypt. There's a crossing point where the trucks are checked, and then they are distributed to the Gazan people. As part of this agreement, a few of those trucks have been heading up north, which is part of the agreement. And we are trying to check their wares. But of course, any opportunity that Hamas has to steal from the Gazan people, to steal fuel, to steal food and medical supplies, they will do so, which is ironic that Israel is protecting the Gazan people from Hamas, who claims to be protecting them from stealing from them. But that's the absurd reality that is called Hamas.
Major, we're on the seventh day of this pause. We're, perhaps looking into seeing further extensions of the ceasefire. Would you consider this pause so far to be a successful one?
Every person that comes to our border is a success. We call it as our responsibility. We are the Israel Defense Forces. Almost every person living in Israel serves in this army. We have family and friends that have been captured and killed. We really are one people. And every person that comes over our border is an enormous feeling of success, a feeling of joy. And yet, of course, it is bittersweet because there are still 140 of our people, as you and I are speaking, deep down in some side, dark, wet tunnel, being held at gunpoint by Hamas. We don't even know if they are alive or if they're dead. This is the travail that the Jewish people are going through and the Israeli people, but we will not stop until we eliminate Hamas and bring our people home.
You mentioned the fact that it almost came up to the deadline as far as extending this truce. What does the IDF envision this war looks like in the immediate aftermath if this truce does break?
The operational goals of the IDF are as we've had originally. We have two operational goals. The first is to eliminate Hamas terrorists, while trying to be as exact as possible because they are hiding behind civilians. They cower behind their own civilians. Eliminate Hamas and operationally destroy their infrastructure. And of course, find our hostages. We managed to capture Hamas terrorists, and throughout the various opportunities that we have to get information from them via interrogation, to uncover more intelligence, and then to find our hostages and bring them home. We are ready to roll out with this operational goals the moment that we need to. The only reason our operations are not continuing and are paused are because of this framework agreement. As soon as that ends and we're given the green light, we move right back into operational mode in the Gaza Strip.
Major Doron Spielman with the IDF. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.